How do you write amazing melodies that stick in your listener's mind and keep them coming back to your song over and over again? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you a clip from a full-length masterclass training that I did for my full-time musician coaching community. And this is going to break down how you can go about writing melodies. It's going to give you some really practical tips on how to write better melodies. And like I said, this is a clip from a full training that broke down 5 different arrangement secrets for better songwriting. This is all inside of my membership. If you want to get access to this yourself, I'll have a link to that in the description below. Otherwise, this is a little sneak peek that you can get and see what kind of content will be inside of this membership. So those are my 5 arrangement tips, but I've got some bonus melody writing tips for you here as well that I wanted to share real quick. So number 1, simple is almost always better when it comes to melody writing. This is kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier with stepwise motion and passing tones, right? If you have a melody that goes all over the place, it's going to be harder for it to stick in people's minds, harder for them to remember it, harder for other people to start singing it. And that's what you want if you want it to be catchy and memorable and stick in someone's mind. You want it to be simpler. So you want it to be simple, but also memorable. So it has to be simple, but not boring. In other words, which obviously is easier said than done, but just something to keep in mind. So also catchy melodies use chord tones. So those are notes within the chord that is currently being played. So I'll show you an example of this in a second. Use leaps. I mentioned leaps, but you want to use them when you're leaping to other chord tones. So maybe you're sticking to stepwise motion or passing tones, so all of the notes are kind of close together. But then as the chord progression changes, it's going from one chord to the next. You can do a leap, but when you are leaping up or leaping down, make sure you're leaping to a note that is also in that chord. Again, this can be broken. You don't have to do this all the time, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then, of course, repetition is key. Repetition is key. Repetition is key. So use motifs, use similar elements over and over. But again, don't do it too much. Right? Remember that rule 3. Remember that 8-bar rule to change something up every 8 bars or every third phrase. And it can also be helpful to vocalize your melodies when writing them instead of just trying to play them on a keyboard or something. Actually, as you're listening to the song, maybe you do some la la la's or do do do's or something to kind of write the melody as you're hearing it, as it's coming to you, as you're listening to your track. And then if you don't know what notes those are, you can actually go into your DAW and turn the tuning on. I'll show you how to do this in Logic, and then you can convert those notes into MIDI, and you can actually see what MIDI notes that you are humming or singing if you wanted to use that to create a melody or write a melody with an actual instrument. So let's look at an example here of a melody. I'm just going to play I've actually sang this, but I'm going to just play the notes here along with the chords so we can take a look at this. Now, I think that is a pretty darn catchy melody. And so let's look, does it match the 5 elements that we've talked about? Is it simple? I think it's pretty simple. It's probably not the simplest melody out there, but you can see most of the notes, if we click off the chords here, most of the notes are just the C note here. And then it moves up and down a little bit, right? We kind of jump up here a little bit, but not very complex. And now, are we using chord tones? Are we using notes that are actually in the chords that are playing? You can see the chords here. The chords here are very simple as well. Every chord in this chord progression has the C note and the G note in it. There's only one note that's changing between each chord. And this is what I find makes really good synthwave style lyrics. This song is kind of a 80s synth pop type song. So the only notes that are changing here, there's only one note changing per chord. So, and then as far as the notes, you can't even see a lot of the notes here in this melody because it's overlapping. They're all in the key of, they're all in the C note. So the first few notes here are C, and then it goes up to D right before the chord hits D here. And we're also hitting E, but there's E in this chord as well. So you can see This one is really A down here. It's really the only one that's not included in the chords here. Everything else is in there. Same thing as we come across here. We can see we got C, we got E, we got D, C, D, and E. There's some B in here as well. So it adds a little bit of a dissonance because those aren't in the chord. So, right, it's not gonna be every single note that is a chord tone, but most of them are. So we got G up here, we got G all the way through, C all the way through. So there's lots of G, lots of C, which are notes in these chords. So it's definitely following that. So, well, here's this dissonance here real quick. Now, real quick, before finishing this training, be sure to grab my free hit songwriting checklist in the description below. I read a ton of books and watched a ton of interviews with all the hit songwriters, especially Max Martin, who's probably the greatest hit songwriter of the past couple decades, and consolidated all the advice that they give, all these hit songwriters give, on what it takes to write great music. And I distilled everything that they taught into basically 9 simple elements that they include in all of their music. And so you can get this little cheat sheet in the description below to help you write better songs. Or you can go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/hit. I don't know if dissonance is the correct word, but it sounds a little bit out of place, but in a good way. So I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. I can't remember what lyric plays there. Let me see. Okay, that lyric is "go back in time." So it kind of stands out there. It's a little weird, like going back in time. So it kind of fits, the melody is fitting with the lyrics. That's how you can create powerful lyrics and melodies as well when they fit together with the actual mood of the words and the meaning, the message. So does it leap to other chord tones when there are a leap? So most of these are pretty much stepwise. There's a couple of leaps. So like here we leap up to G. And we can see our chords here, which of course we already know G is all the way through every single chord. So yes, this is definitely following that rule as well. It's leaping up. And by the way, I didn't like consciously think I want to write a melody and think of all these rules. This melody just kind of came to me when I was creating the song. As I was creating the song, just the melody popped into my head and I created it. So I don't know if that's just because I listened to so much music. You kind of know what a melody sounds like, a good melody, and you can start getting ideas. Then we are using stepwise motion here. You can see it's dropping right down the scale all the way through here. And then repetition. Not a ton of repetition in this melody, so maybe that could be the downside of it, but there's a few parts that repeat. Like we got repetition here. Let me click off here. So you can see we have this kind of repeating, this kind of repeating. So the first half is very similar. Kind of the latter half of the first half here is changing up a bit. So we have a few repeating sections in here, but not quite as much. Here there's more repetition in the verse melody that I have here. So we can see this is all repeating. This is all repeating. And then we kind of have something changing up here in the last bar in each section. So it's kind of mirroring itself. So those are how you can go about writing some melodies. And then it's also a good idea to vocalize a melody, which I definitely did myself. I can play that for you if you want. So that was kind of the idea I had, and I just recorded it so I wouldn't forget it. And then I just wrote my lyrics to that melody to fit that melody. Hey, I hope you got value from this training. Like I said, it's just one little piece of a full training that is inside of my membership. And when you become a member, not only will you get one in-depth training every month, but you also get access to live group coaching. You get access to a community so you can interact with other like-minded musicians like yourself. And there's also a bunch of bonuses I'm constantly adding to the membership as well, such as my time management course for musicians. and plugin discounts as well. And again, more content is being added to this membership all the time. So if you want to learn more, go ahead and click the link in the description below or go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/FTM. If you found this video helpful and want more help writing songs, then be sure to click the video playing on the screen right now. With that, have an awesome day and keep creating.